know. Stay with us. It's 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.
Here on Info, they call us on time.
Because we bring it right on time.
Anybody that wants to remove.
Welcome to Nigeria Info, where the news sparks conversation.
When Donald Trump said what he said, why do you think we're here today?
What is the policy of this my government on how to put an end to the war? Rather than send the government as a misplaced priority in their governance.
Some people are trying to play politics to the issue as we normally do.
This is your space to listen, share, and be heard. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk. Be part of the discussion. It's Borderline.
On 99.3 Nigeria Info.
From Washington to Beijing, Moscow to Abuja, London to Kigali, the world is shifting fast. Elections are shaping destinies, wars are redrawing borders, economies are rising and falling, and global alliances are being tested like never before. But what does it all mean for you?
With a new administration and a new president in the White House trying to put an end to the war.
I didn't know the historical context, what the state of Israel means for them.
Join the fearless Ireti Bakare-Yusuf on Borderlines every Friday at 4 p.m. on Nigeria Info 99.3. As she dissects the biggest global events and their impact on world peace.
Those who are not familiar with Israel or the war itself would not know much about the group breaking the silence.
No spin, no propaganda, just deep insights and fearless conversations on the geopolitics shaping our world.
People who will call and start telling you about the Bible prophecy about America and everything. See, America is not in the Bible. There's some people who, yes, they share the ideology of, yes, we and these people, we are equal, but they can't speak up.
Borderlines on Nigeria Info every Friday at 4 p.m. The world is changing. Don't just watch, understand it. Nigeria Info. Let's talk.
Good afternoon, Lagos, Nigeria, wherever you are joining us from. My name is Ireti Bakare-Yusuf. Welcome to the second edition, or should I say, the final part of the Borderlines Town Hall. Remember last week we had 4 guests. Those guests we talked about the history, the pain. We had Dr. Kabiru giving us the data. We had Reverend Ayab who talked about his experience, especially the experience with his congregants who he had buried. We had Professor El Tantawi who spoke to us about Sharia law. We then had David Undoyi who spoke to us about the geopolitics of it all. Today, we have an even bigger, much better, more engaging, more informative, and certainly much more uncompromising show for you. We don't call it a town hall for nothing, and it certainly isn't a borderline special without the following people. Ambassador Joe Keshi, a man that I've wanted to interview for many years now. He's also the former permanent secretary, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We have Dr. Nwokolo. Last week, you remember that I read out one of the options or solutions given by Nextier. Well, Dr. Nwokolo is the managing partner, Nextier Advisory and Governance Consultants. Yep, we have another big brain. And then we have Chitra Nagarajan. Chitra wrote a book. She didn't just write a book. Chitra interviewed over 700 victims of Boko Haram in Maiduguri over a few years. Chitra will be joining us to tell us about their experience. So we're going in the humanitarian way. And then it's an absolute, in fact, I feel like I ought to do a salute. Don't know whether that's correct, to have Major General Henry Ayoola retired. He is the former commander, Special Task Force, Operations Safe Haven. Like I said, my name is Ireti Bakare-Yusuf. We don't have time. 2 hours seems like a long time. But I promise you, when you have a guest list as this, it's certainly not enough. Gentlemen, I'm yet to see the lady amongst you. Welcome to Borderlines, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, General.
And good day to our listeners.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Ambassador Keshi.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Pleasure being with you.
Good afternoon to my fellow panelists.
And good afternoon, Dr. Nwokolo.
Dr. Keshi, nice to see you. And Dr. Nwokolo,
Greetings. Greetings, General. How are you?
Very fine, sir.
Okay, we are expecting our fourth panelist who is yet to join. So I'll get straight to it. We want to talk about the diplomacy of it all. Dr. Ambassador Keshi, if I may start with you. The one thing that has become, well, it's always been apparent, but has become even more under the spotlight is the fact that Nigeria does not have ambassadors in over 100 countries, but at the very least, in key countries such as the United States, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Belgium, all those countries that we tend to do business with, and if you like, they're part of NATO. And here we are today. So talk to us about the failure, what a failure it is, let me put it that way, that we have an administration that's been in place for 2 years without actually naming or sending any ambassadors to any of those countries. And if that would have made a difference to where we are now, especially with the United States.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can, sir. You might need to bring your camera a little bit down because we can only see half of... there you are. Yes, there you are. Thank you.
Yes, thank you once again. Certainly, the presence of an ambassador in a place like Washington at this point in time would have made a difference. For the simple reason that the ambassador is a representative of the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And the way the diplomatic, system works, particularly in big countries like Washington, China, Russia, and a few other places, it's actually very, very difficult, for officials. Just look, let me put it this way. Diplomats who serve in third world countries or African countries, they have easier access to the leadership of these countries than diplomats who serve in a number of European and Western countries and some other countries. But if you had an ambassador, at least, he would be able to reach the State Department or to reach the ministries of foreign affairs of whichever country he's situated, and would be able to present Nigerian position or Nigerian argument on this issue better than an officer would have been able to do. Because, the way the United States works, most of the African countries, they go through the Department of African Affairs, to the Secretary of State before they even, that is if ever they get to the White House. But the good thing is that between the White House and the Department of State, there's a very good communication. So whatever the ambassador goes in to tell the Secretary of State through the Department of African Affairs will certainly get to the White House. But in a situation where you do not have an ambassador, it even becomes more challenging, for a lower officer, even if it's the next to the ambassador, the charge d'affaires, to communicate. And so when it gets to the Department of State for African Affairs, look, the way the system works is that he'll be asked to see a quote-unquote his counterpart, who will now listen to him. It's his counterpart, not the Secretary of State, not the chief of the department itself. that will take up all these matters and then go to the next level and then escalate it to the next, cascade it upstairs before it ever gets to the White House. So the importance of an ambassador, cannot be overstated. And for the fact that we've not been able to put ambassadors out there for the last 2 years, I believe has diminished our diplomatic status. I believe has caused us a lot in a number of capital cities. I also believe that it has not been good for our image, because there's absolutely, in my view, I don't have all the information, but there's absolutely no justifiable reason that I can pinpoint to for not pointing an ambassador to these states. Well, one reason that has come from the villa and from the Minister of Foreign Affairs itself is that the president says that there's no money. Again, whether this can be justified or not is another argument, because we all live in this country. And every now and then you hear the federal government itself say that, look, they've made so much money from the removal of
oil subsidy.
Subsidies. Mm-hmm. And every now and then, you hear that so much money has been given to state governments, and yet we can't even pinpoint what is going on in the states and what these monies are being used for. So it's a question of the fact that, is this government really interested in foreign affairs, or is not interested in what happens externally? But the other side of it, which is even more interesting, is that the president loves to travel. So you begin to ask yourself, look, there's these contradictions. You have a president who loves to travel. You have the ministry that is not well taken care of. You have officers abroad that are also not properly looked after. How do you expect the diplomatic structure of Nigeria to be able to work well and be able to defend the country itself?
It's a great question, and we should be exploring that, because that's a good place to live. But let me come to the other side of the debate now, or at least another branch, should I say, of the debate. Dr. Nwokolo, you are a governance and data analyst. From a governor's perspective, why has it been so impossible for this administration, or at least even prior administrations, to communicate credible data and policy clarity on the drivers of insecurity in Nigeria? Dr. Nwokolo, can you hear me? Are you on mute? I think you might need to unmute him, because we are not able to hear Dr. Nwokolo. Okay, do we have... Perhaps there's a problem with the network on his side. Dr. Nwokolo, can you... I think we've unmuted you, but it should appear if you're talking, we can't hear you. So perhaps you might need to dial back in. Perhaps dial out and dial back in, and I will come back to you, I promise, because your perspective is very important. Chitra Nagarajan has joined us. Hello, Chitra. Thank you for joining us.
Hello. Good to be back on the show.
Thank you. Right, so you've spent years documenting conflict and human rights abuse in Nigeria's Middle Belt and indeed the Northeast. How do we ensure the language? In fact, before we talk about the language, I'd like to talk about what you did, the collection, the interviews with over 700, if I'm correct, over 700 victims of Boko Haram. I'd like to talk to you about collecting that data, interviewing them, but most importantly, if you could just highlight for us the overriding thread that you get amongst pretty much, the vast majority of those you spoke to.
Thank you so much for that question, Ireti. And maybe it goes a little bit to what the ambassador was saying, because unfortunately, I would say for most of the people who I spoke to, their relationship with the state, with the government, was complicated, shall we say. It's not that they didn't recognize that the government was trying. And in fact, some of the people who I interviewed were local government and state government officials themselves. But I think all of them, even the soldiers who I interviewed, felt that there was a lot more that the government needed to be doing, and a lot more the government needed to be doing to ensure safety and security. And I think you saw that most starkly in the interviews, the narratives that I did with the soldiers themselves. And in the book that I published, I have 47 narratives of people, 2 of whom are soldiers, and both of the soldiers talked about how frustrated that they couldn't wage the war in a way that they wanted to, either because of lack of equipment or because of the constraints that they were under. And they spoke about how almost it was set up, the whole war was set up in a way that they really struggled not to harm civilians, that they didn't know who was the civilian, who was the enemy. They found themselves making mistakes. They didn't have support in terms of how to deal with that. I think mental health support is very key. And these are the soldiers. These are the people who are supposed to be protecting us. So imagine what the others feel like. And I think, again, we see amongst the people I interviewed who had joined or been abducted and forced to join armed opposition groups, Boko Haram, many of them were motivated by unhappiness with the way things were in their communities, grievances with politicians, but also their community leaders. And then they came back. They chose to leave the bush, and they came back to find that the problems continued. And that's without even talking about the civilians. So, and I'm not saying this to criticize the government. We know that the government is trying at a lot of levels, but also that there seems to be something structural that prevents the Nigerian state being able to offer safety and security to the people living within it. And often, I'm sorry to say, but often we find politicians and others who should really do differently trying to exacerbate division between groups. And this is what I think this whole question or this whole conversation around the Christian genocide plays into.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to come back to you because I do have a question for you, Chitra, which is when the soldiers talked about, feeling kind of helpless, without the right equipment or however it was that they put it. When I come back to you, I'd like you to explain to us exactly what they mean, right? So I'll come back to you. Let me go back. Dr. Nwokolo, can you hear me? Are you able to hear me now? Oh, we still can't hear you. I'm afraid we still can't hear Dr. Nwokolo. Technical people, can you please try and sort out his mic? Doctor, there might be something on your laptop, if you're using your laptop, that's preventing it. If you're using a phone, I might suggest that you put your phone on flight mode and go on Wi-Fi, however much. So I'm going to come to you, General Ayoola. This is a great time to come to you because you've just heard what Chitra said about at least 2 of the military men that she spoke to, and how, let's put it bluntly, they were feeling helpless. They didn't feel they were being supported by, perhaps it's the military infrastructure, the apparatus, or indeed the government. Over to you, sir. General.
All right. Thank you very much for that question. Well, it's a difficult question to answer because, like she said, Ms. Chitra said, you spoke with 2 soldiers. I'm not sure that is sufficiently representative of the entire force in the field there, as to now start answering to their impression about the operation. But we know, even if they were not interviewed, we know that the soldiers could be better supported in terms of logistics, equipment, platforms, and all of that. And that state of the force in the field is not peculiar to the operation in the Northeast. I think if we want to trace it back, we have to go as far back as early 80s. After, I think the last time the military was deliberately equipped based on some choice of the way militaries are equipped usually is to look into the future and say, look, what kind of war are we likely to fight, say, in the next 25 years? And what kind of equipment, weapons, training that we will need to be prepared for that kind of war? And so based on that, you start your acquisition process and procedures, your training doctrine and all of that. We all align to that, projected, task for the future. And of course, your contingency plans will be put in place, and then you then be able to more accurately be able to state what you need to fight the kind of war that you see coming. Okay, now I think there was a gap about that, because what happened in 1999 was that when the civilian government came, it was more or less like the military was just set aside. It's like, of course, in the minds of many, many politicians, it's like, oh, the military has had their time, let them just go to their barracks and rest. And, attention were given to other things. And again, it boils down to our strategic thinking, capacity to even be able to foresee. Because as at that time, in fairness to everybody, as at that time, asymmetric warfare, the kind that we are fighting now, and more of even a hybrid warfare, that's a mix of asymmetric, guerrilla, conventional, electronic, warfare, network-centric warfare, all of the mix that we have now, we're not quite anticipated. Let me put it that way. Because when you look at our neighbors and the kind of the strategic environment that we live in, I mean, those were not things that were, postulated by most scholars, even at the time. So I can safely say that this nature of threat that we are now facing came more like a surprise than anything else. But that's not an excuse for us not to have been able to do something since 2009 to now in re-equipping the armed forces, re-strategizing, re-envisioning the kind of warfare we're fighting, and then be able to appropriately prepare for them. So it's a state of the nation itself. Like it happened in several other sectors that, I mean, we just finished talking about the foreign sector now. And Ambassador Keshi told us how it doesn't appear we are prepared to engage other nations, in a way that will make them take us very seriously. So I think it's just the same kind of thing that are played out in the security sector of the nation. That's what I can say about that so far.
Okay, let me just come to you. If I could give you 1 minute to just answer this before I go to Dr. Nwokolo, whose audio seems to have been fixed. You were in charge of Operation Safe Haven, which was to do with keeping peace in Plateau in Benue. Would you say it was successful?
Okay, let me start by just a slight correction about that. Operation Safe Haven does not cover Benue State. It covers Plateau, part of Bauchi, part of Kaduna. That's all. That's what it covers. Yes.
Thank you.
Well, I've said it for the uptime time that what we're calling security challenge in Nigeria is actually not a security challenge. I've said that again and again. And I'm willing to face anybody who wants to challenge me on that, because having been on ground, I saw what the real problem is. The problem is really not a security challenge. It's more of a power challenge, not even political, power challenge. Power challenge.
What do you mean by that, sir? What do you mean by this power?
Yes, I will explain. It's got to do with our our nation, the real fabric of our nation, the what I call the Nigerian question today. Are we a state, a country, a nation, or a nation state? Do we, even all of these problems we're talking about, have we been able to face them as a unified force, as a single nation, knowing who the adversary or the enemy is, and we are bringing to bear the whole weight of the nation? You know, believing that everybody else, you know, recognizes the enemy and is willing to fight the enemy. That's where the real issue is. Everybody is dodging it. But that's where the real issue is. We have never really fought any of these challenges as a whole unit. We have efforts that the government are putting, you know, I mean, one illustration I can use is that of the current chairman of EFCC. He gave one illustration when he was briefing the Senate, that it's like keeping some very hungry monkeys in a cage somewhere, and then you hang a very ripe, you know, bunch of banana in the cage, and you told the monkeys, don't touch that banana, don't touch it. And then you now keep the EFCC outside the cage with a whip in the hand to ensure that the monkeys will not touch the banana. Okay. That's the kind of thing we're doing with the military today, with our security sector. We are pushing them out to go and do an assignment that those who are pushing them out know in their heart of hearts that the problem you are giving them to solve is not a security problem.
Thank you.
It's a political problem. It's a power problem. It's a problem that got to do with the real fabric of the nation. And so, are we a unified nation? Are we a country, an entity of multinational ethnic groups that are yet to be weaved into one nation with one set of shared core values, one strategic purpose, one will, you know, to pursue that strategic purpose? That's the real Nigerian question. And until we address that, all of the efforts we are making will just be in futility.
Thank you very much.
I don't know if that helps.
That helps. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah. Dr. Nwokolo, I'm coming to you. And unfortunately, I can only give you 2 minutes because we're fast running out of time. Talk to us about why government, everybody, you know, there's you, or rather, should I say, there's Nextier, there's SBM Intelligence, there's Beacon, Security Services. I come to 3 of you, 3 organizations, if I want data. But government data, why is it missing? Why is it impossible for government to be able to give us data, strong, consistent data that we can at least point to, which is what the whole country is asking for, albeit at a late stage?
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now, sir. Thank you.
All right. Technology, yeah.
Indeed.
So let me start by trying to, before I dive into your question, to not to correct what General Ayoola tried to say here, but to say that conflict or insecurity as we have it, the way he tried to define it, has changed over the years. So we now have what we call the new wars, right? And these new wars has to do with the kind of picture he tries to paint, which is that wars are no longer fought because a country is fighting against a country. Wars are now fought within because some people feel that they're either marginalized or they are not within the scheme of things. So you have mostly intra conflicts within countries. So whether you look at all these things, they still form part of insecurity a country experiences. So when groups fight against each other, either because of the way the nation is governed. So back to your question, it's difficult for Nigeria to gather data because of what I would call the nature and character of the Nigerian state, where issues are not treated the way they are. I mean, we are struggling now to defend whether Christians are killed more or Muslims are killed more because we overlook what we should be doing. So we still ask ourselves when we're filling forms to fill your ethnic group, to feel whether you're a Christian or Muslim or whatever. But when it comes to other forms of data, we pretend that we don't know about it. This is a country where we're claiming we're 200 million. And a lot of people are still questioning it because from years immemorial that we started as a country till date, we've never conducted one successful census. So even our claim of being 200 million is questionable. This is the only country where you have more people in the desert than in the hinterland or near the coastal cities. So these are most of the issues we need to question as a country. So when you try to ask the question, how come the government can't keep the data? It's as well to ask you why the Nigerian government cannot fix your road. Why every Nigerian is a government on itself. I live in a house, I do my borehole, I employ my security or within my area. Every Nigerian household is a government. There's even a book written by a professor from Princeton University that said that every Nigerian household is a government. So the failure is across board. So the failure not to keep data is as well as the failure not to have appointed ambassadors and high commissioners over 2 years. It's the same failure for you to remove subsidy. You do not even know how to manage it. It's the same failure. You have people in awaiting trial who have been there for 10 years. You cannot even try them. It's the same failure that you have school children, about 20 million out of school children, you don't even know what to do with them. You're struggling whether they are 20 million or they are 15 million. So each time there is a pressure from a development partner, you turn around and you pretend to be the right thing. So to answer you, or to be very direct,
please be
it's
direct.
not just because the government cannot keep data. It means that the government 50-60% is failing in all its ramifications. In short, to say that Nigeria is not an effective state is to say it in a very mild form.
Thank you so much, Doctor. I'm going to be coming to your calls now. 0201-277-0993 or 0201-465-7190. You can send, or you should have been sending your WhatsApp to 0809-597-5805. We are broadcasting live on YouTube, on Facebook, and of course on the radio. Before I go to your calls, they've started calling. Hello. Okay, the line disconnected. I'm going to come back to Ambassador Keshi. We seem to have lost General Ayoola. Ambassador Keshi, Dr. Nwokolo has talked about bad governance, let's be honest, and he's basically talked about the fact that we have bad governance across the country in every aspect of our HDI or society. Keeping that in mind, how then does a country that has or suffers from bad governance, if indeed you agree with him, begins to actually converse diplomatically with leaders, especially somebody like Donald Trump, President Trump, of, whether you like him or not, an organized country? Ambassador.
Well,
yeah.
Sorry. Yes. Thank you very much for that question, but I'll come to that question. But allow me to say, just in response to first, I want to respond to my friend, the general, and also to say that, look, I disagree with the general when he said that the kind of war they are fighting today is not generally, was not anticipated, or the way he described the issue of equipment. General, you remember that the Nigerian military distinguished itself, as we all like to claim, in Liberia and Sierra Leone. And I put it before you that in Liberia and Sierra Leone, let me put it this way. When the Boko Haram incident started and the Nigerian army was deployed and there was challenges, the first response of the Nigerian army was to say that they are not fighting conventional warfare, and this is on record, that they are fighting a bunch of ragtag guerrilla armies and all that kind of thing. And my response was, who did you fight in Liberia and Sierra Leone? You fought a ragtag military or bunch of ragtag collection. And my question is, what experience did you gain from fighting those characters that you could have used in fighting Boko Haram when it started, before we now have all kinds of characters in the mix? The second thing, General, you also know was that even when you were fighting in Liberia and Sierra Leone, you were not properly equipped. You were not properly equipped. And I will say this because if you remember the effort to liberate Freetown, in which I was in Freetown and I was involved, we almost lost our lives because of the ineffectiveness or the poor equipment provided by the Nigerian government to its soldiers who were in the war front. The battle, for example, of Mamiyoko or Battle of Freetown started at 6 o'clock. In some sectors of the war, by 7 o'clock, Nigerian army had no arms and ammunition to fight. They had no arms and ammunition to fight. And again, I can say to you on record that by 10 o'clock of that day, my wife was seeing the children in New York. I called my family and said to them, in case this is the last phone call I will make, I told my wife, look after the children, to tell you how bad it was. The battle started at 6 o'clock. 7 o'clock, Nigerian army that was with us in Mamiyoko had little or no equipment to fight. It was at 2 o'clock that I decided to negotiate with the Red Cross so that our lives can be saved. So the issue of equipment did not start in 1999 with the civilian government. It has started particularly under General Abacha. Some of your colleagues arrived at the war front with no equipment. Some had no shoes. They came with slippers. So the Nigerian army has really had a problem of its own, before they came into this. Before the crisis in Nigeria started. Look, I also agree with the assertion about Nigeria, which he highlighted and things like that. But it goes to speak to the question of leadership in this country. I'll just say that about that. And I come back to what Governor Nwokolo has said so as to reply your question. Look, Dr. Nwokolo is absolutely right. This whole thing borders completely on bad governance and the refusal or the failure of successive governments in this country to ensure that we live up to the expectation of the Nigerian Constitution. The Nigerian Constitution, as how do I put it? Everybody seems to have a problem with the Nigerian Constitution today, and there are those who say it does not represent our interests, or it's not bad, it's not good for the country. But the truth of the matter is that even if we make efforts to implement or to ensure that we rule by what is in the Constitution today, the country will be in a better shape. Virtually every part of that Constitution is operated in breach. And as Dr. Nwokolo pointed out, how do you explain, for example, that I think it says, I can't remember whether it's section 14, but I know it's chapter 2, the fundamental rights or whatever it is, But I believe section 14 or something like that, somewhere there, you'll find that the first responsibility of the Nigerian government is the protection of life and property. And then it goes to state the rights of the Nigerian and what the government should do. Please go read that section and then compare it to what is going on in this country. And that's what I call, the internal contradiction of Nigeria. By the way, is what affects or is affecting our diplomacy today. In the diplomatic language, we normally say that foreign policy is an extension of domestic policy. So if your domestic policy is weak or your domestic environment is very weak, there's certainly no way you can conduct an effective or assertive foreign policy. So once your domestic environment is weak, once things are not going on very well, once there are all these contradictions, once you have all these problems, once you have a leadership problem, look, Yesterday, I think, was it this morning, yesterday, there were all reports. Nigeria was classified among the 16 countries that to find the people are very hungry. Compare that to the fact that one arm of government says to us, oh, the economy is doing very well. But yet, other people are classifying the fact that your people are hungry. So these are some of the internal contradictions you find about this country. And it boils down to bad governance. It boils down to poor leadership. It boils down to the fact that successive governments have really failed the country itself, particularly on the issue of security, because there's no way anybody can explain to me how this crisis in Nigeria, the insecurity has lasted for 15 years. If it has lasted for 15 years, it's absolutely a failure of leadership.
Thank you.
How on earth? We are not at war, but people are dying, people are being killed, people are being kidnapped, we are paying ransom. We have no clue. Those who are responsible for this, we have no clue where they're getting their arms and ammunition. Nobody has ever been brought to justice. Of course, you hear the government tell you that, 15,000 or how many thousands of people have been brought to trial. When was the trial and where was that trial conducted?
Thank you. Excellent. I'm coming to your calls now. The calls have started coming in. Be short, be sharp, not comment, succinct. Very quickly. Hello.
Hello, Sister. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Please speak louder and state who your question is for. Thank you.
Yeah, I have just two questions, and it's basically for all the. So my first question is this war we are fighting in Nigeria political? And that is one. Then two, how can they explain the recruiting of Boko Haram members into the military by the government?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to put that to all of you, whoever wants to take it, please do. So, is this a political war? Dr. Nwokolo, if you want to answer that. And actually, I will come to you, General Ayoola, with, is it true that Boko Haram members have been subsumed into the military? Ambassador Keshi, perhaps you want to answer that question about the politics very quickly in 30 seconds, and then I'll go to Dr. Nwokolo. Is this a political war?
Sorry, I didn't get the question.
Is this a political war? Can you hear me, sir? Can you hear me?
Sorry, I didn't get the question.
Okay, I'll just repeat it. Is this a political war? I believe we're having problems with your network. Can you hear me, sir? Okay, we'll come back to you. I'll go to Dr. Nwokolo. Dr. Nwokolo, is this a political war?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. Okay, go ahead, Ambassador. Go ahead, Ambassador.
All right.
If you could be quick. Thank you, sir. Is this a political war, was the question?
I need to hear your question. Sorry.
Is this a political war? Are we in a political war?
I guess to some extent, I think the simple answer is yes. Yes, and there's a strong element of politics in this. Some bits of it is political. Look, you probably have to go back to 1999, how Sharia was introduced into this country. It was political, and then those who introduced it, unfortunately, are no longer, on the scene. But they sowed a seed that has caused us so much pain and agony in this country today.
Thank you.
You can also see the behavior of some of the politicians in Borno, a couple of, when this Boko Haram thing started, their behavior, indicated completely that it was political. And of course, let's go back to 2015, the efforts to remove President Jonathan, it was all political. So to a large extent, this is it's a mixture.
Thank you,
it's
sir.
a mixture of, politics, it's a mixture of economy, and it's also a mix of add into the mix underdevelopment and the rest of it. So it's a mixture of everything, actually. But yes, it's highly political as well.
Thank you very much.
At least that's my view.
Thank you very much. Dr. Nwokolo, I've got to be fast. 1 minute. Is this a political war? And if so,
yes, I will to the same part with Ambassador Keshi to say somehow it's political. But one fundamental thing is that when it comes to state building, if you fail to build your state in a manner that is very inclusive in nature, in a manner that no part of your state is neglected, these issues find path to grow. So what you've seen is a country that lacks inclusivity, that has neglected most components of its border. So and this is what you're experiencing. So when you say it's political, some people will say yes, but because the Nigerian state gave the fertile ground for all these things to grow. So when you look at places where institutions of the state work to a level where people are held accountable, it becomes very difficult for things to grow the way it has grown here. So someone could say, yes, it's political. Yes, it's economic. Yeah, it could be economic because when you look at issues of maybe
I need to wrap you up,
environmental issues, you bring that aspect. Yes, it could be cultural. Yes, it could be religious. But all these things put together shows that when a state is failing in its duty, most of these things becomes manifestation of a failed state, and they will help in the way it goes either to solve its problem or not to solve its problem.
Thank you very much, sir. General Ayoola, I see you have your hand raised. Chitra, I've seen your hand raised. I will come to you. We're still in the question. So I need you both to be quick because we've got to move to part 2. You won't believe an hour's already gone. General, you wanted to respond to the ambassador, and also, I can see you smiling. Could you also respond to the question? Have we taken in Boko Haram into our military? And if so, why?
Okay, thank you very much. Well, I like the ambassador's contribution because it actually helped to make my point. When he referred to our performance in Liberia and Sierra Leone, we need to understand the nature of war is there are no two wars that are exactly the same. The nature of war differs from one to another. Now, that was a humanitarian intervention that Nigeria did. We went as a single nation. It's different from an internal problem where the clash of civilizations is playing out. And that's a major thing that is affecting this insurgency, terrorism, and banditry. When it comes to our internal, workings, that's when the ethno-religious crisis comes up. And that has been a major root of this whole thing. Of course, we all know Boko Haram, how they started. What's the meaning of Boko Haram? The name Boko Haram itself is a deception, but that's not the real name. Their real name, which they bear, is JAS, Jama'atu al-Sunnah Lidawati wal Jihad. Now, that tells you a whole lot that it has a religious ideology at its root. And because they didn't want that to be a common knowledge, they chose Boko Haram, which some people even misinterpret as Western education is forbidden. No, but Boko actually means Western civilization. Education is just a component of that. And it plays out to what Samuel Huntington has spoken about, that conflicts in this 21st century going forward will be based on the fault lines of cultural differences, ideological differences, and all of that, which is what we're seeing. So I've always said that in most of my interviews, that what is happening in Nigeria is a local replication of a global trend. If you just take a list of terrorist groups all over the world today, you see that they have the same ideological roots. With Boko Haram, with ISWAP, with Ansaru, with Lakurawa, with JNIM, which is the latest now. So we cannot run away from that reality. And that makes a world of difference. Now, precisely talking about the other Boko Haram I put in the army, only only the people in the army can tell you for sure. And not even everybody in the army will know that. I've heard of that allegation. After I left service 10 years ago, so I'm not.
Does it sound plausible, though? Does it sound plausible to you?
10 years ago.
Yeah, but does it sound plausible?
No, well, I mean, again, when you factor in the ethno-religious biases that we have seen over the years. By the way, I started my military career as a boy soldier from the Nigerian military school in Zaria. I've seen this whole emergent scenario playing right before my eyes. First, as a young soldier boy, seeing the senior officers marching them on parade, seeing several coups, apart from the 1966 coup, all the other coups happened while I was already in uniform. So I know how we got to where we are. And this ethno-religious root is still the strongest of all the factors.
Thank you very much.
It overrides so many things. It even incapacitates us so that, just like the ambassador said, that we are supposed to be able to do better. If there were lessons learned from Liberia, from Sierra Leone, then they should make us better. But that is not the case. And that also plays out not only in the security sector. In several other sectors, we do so many things in this nation as if we are doing them for the first time. Even things that we have done for the opt-in time. So it's as if we are incapable of learning lessons. So we keep repeating history.
Thank you so much.
That's that.
Okay, I need to move on to Chitra now because we're running out of time. I will come back to you, sir. Okay? I will come back to you. Okay. Chitra, you had your hand up. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. I've got to be strict now because we're really running out of time. And I still have questions for you. Thank you.
Yes. I just want to start by saying that all wars are political, right? So this idea that is this a political war or is this not? Wars are always an indication of a failure of the political system. And when we look at what happened in Northeast Nigeria, we can find 3 ways that the conflict there is linked to politics. First of all, what made people attracted to Muhammad Yusuf in the first place? It was because he was talking to them in ways that they understood, talking to them about the corruption, inequality, nepotism that they saw in society, which he linked to the democratic dispensation that Nigeria was under. So I think that also shows a failure of politics. Secondly, we know that Borno State politicians, as the ambassador mentioned, tried to harness the popularity of Muhammad Yusuf and his Yan Yusufiya for their own political ends. And so that obviously led to or contributed to the feeding and the growth of the movement. And finally, we know that when the state did respond, it was in highly heavy-handed security measures. So the extrajudicial execution of Muhammad Yusuf himself and the killing of hundreds of his followers and the going to communities that were seen as linked to the group, engaging in arbitrary detentions, rounding up people, and that created a real sense of grievance also, which led many people to join the group, even if they hadn't done so. And all of this that I'm talking about is just between 2005 and 2009. So if we brought it to the present day, it would be even more. I wanted to mention something. One of the other panelists talks about new wars. Now, we call them new wars, but they've been going on for over 30 years, right? 30, 40 years. After all, when was the last time that Nigeria fought an international war? And so why is it that Nigerian security forces are not trained to fight in the way that they're actually being deployed? Because this is not new. This has been going on for decades. And we still find security forces, the military, the police, completely struggling in dealing with the reality. And I just want to mention this point that between 2000 and 2004, over 1,000 soldiers resigned from the Nigerian military, and most of them had not reached the retirement age, nor had they completed their mandatory years of service. And why was that? And as someone, I spent years, 5-6 years living in my degree. I've been working on the Lake Chad Basin for over 12 years now. But during my years living in my degree, I would spend time going to forward operating bases across Borno, training soldiers on human rights, IHL, international humanitarian law, civilian protection. And everywhere I went, soldiers talked to me about wanting to leave the military. And so let me just say that there is a real, we talked about equipment and other things, but there's also a real crisis of morale in the military. because they don't feel supported by their superiors. And also they see themselves as fighting their own people and not knowing best how to do that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm coming to the calls now, although for some reason, I seem to have lost two of my panelists online. Please get them back. Network issues. I'm coming to your calls, but I think I have questions on WhatsApp. Is that correct? Yes. Let me find it now. Right. My question on the Nigerian foreign status is in terms of lack of ambassadors in the US, UK, and other countries. How is the international media interpreting Nigeria's diplomatic silence? Are there risks of misinformation or reputation damage due to this vacuum? That's Yomi from Nwokolo. Ambassador, I guess that's to you. If you could just write that down. I've got to answer. I'm going to try and answer two more calls. One question each, very quickly, because I've got to move to the second part. Hello. Hello.
Hello, Cecilia.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Oboli. Very quickly, your question, please.
All right, ma'am. Let me say thank you to Chitra for blessing humanity with her book.
Yes, we can bless Chitra later. I need your question, please. We don't have time.
My question is this, Cecilia. I think insurgency in Nigeria is highly politicized rather than economical. The question this night is, why is it that at the point of the military personnel or security operatives combating with terrorists in kinetic approach method, at the end of the day, they are told to stand down? Who is supposed to give the order of extinguishing?
Sorry. No. What is your question, Mrs. Oboli? I need you to make it short.
My question is, who is supposed to give that order and is telling them to stand down?
Right, who is telling?
Supposed to give the order and the person is not giving? That's the question, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Who is telling them to stand down? General, I believe you have your hands up. Can you write that down? And I'm going to pick up one more call. Hello. Hello. Good evening, Emmanuel. Very quickly, short.
Quickly, some of us believe that these guys carrying out these atrocities are supported by rich men, traditional rulers, even some government officials. Because they can buy AK-47 that is worth close to about 3 million naira. Does the government have information about the sponsors of these people, and the government is not taking action against the sponsors?
The sponsors that are giving the
insecurity in Nigeria.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
And if the government does not take action against the sponsors,
Emmanuel, I can only take one question. Literally, you have to call back. We don't have time. I've still got part 2 and part 3. So I think that question goes to the three of you. But Chitra, you wanted to say something to what Mrs. Oboli said. Is that correct? Or can I move on from you? Okay, right. In that case, I'm coming to General Ayoola. General Ayoola, the question was from Emmanuel was about who is giving them the order to stand down when they say stand down?
Well, thank you very much. That's a tricky question because it's been an allegation that we have had again and again that sometimes when it appears our soldiers are gaining upper hand or something and somebody high up will say stand down. Well, war is a complex issue. Unless you have stark evidence to prove such a thing, it's difficult to prove such a thing because, there is 1,001 reason why a commander can say do this or do that. And, warfare is not like 1 + 1 is equal to 2. Mm-hmm. The commander on the ground has all the leverage to decide to act or not to act. That's why it's even difficult to know whether the commander is on your side, on the enemy side.
Okay.
Because there are so many things that can cover his intentions.
Thank you.
That unless you have dry evidence to nail the person, it's difficult to make that kind of allegation.
Thank you very much. Yes. Ambassador, I think I had a question for you on WhatsApp, which was, I'll read it out to you again. My question, this is from Yomi Nwokolo, said, how is the international media interpreting Nigeria's diplomatic silence? Are there risks of misinformation or reputational damage due to this vacuum? I need you to answer that in 1 minute, sir, so we can go up to the next part.
Well, look, there was an article yesterday. I'm trying to remember in one of these international newspapers that was really not complimentary to Nigerian diplomacy. I think the argument the direction of the article was to point out the complete failure of Nigerian diplomacy. So that gives you a very clear picture of how the world is reacting to the Nigerian situation. And I think I have always emphasized this. One of those things that we have failed to realize in this country, particularly government officials have failed to realize in this country, that, should I put it the way I like to put it?
Please do.
That I joined the joined the diplomatic service at a time in which a diplomat was described as an envoy sent to lie on behalf of his country. Today, it's virtually impossible for any envoy to lie for his country. So, as things are happening, the incident that happened 3 days ago in Abuja between the minister of FCT and it's all over the world. And so there's no way anybody can put a spin on that no, it didn't happen, that it's, of course, today you could say whether it's AI generated. But the truth of the matter is that I go back to what I said before. Number one, we are a very important country. And by the way, we have been since independence. As far back as 1960, the world has so much hope and expectations from Nigeria. And so they continue to monitor Nigeria and to pay active attention to what is going on in Nigeria. And this is why you find that quite often newspapers abroad and people abroad comment about the Nigerian situation and how unhappy they are that Nigeria has not lived up to its manifest destiny. So quite frankly, I just think that at the end of the day, we have to realize we do not live in a world of isolation, and we really need to do more to improve our domestic environment. If we want to use Donald Trump's words, if we want beautiful exposure out there about our country.
Thank you so much. Right, I'm going to go on to part 2 now. Unless anybody has anything to add to that.
There was a third question that we didn't answer.
Oh, yes, please go ahead.
And that question is on why government is not persecuting or I didn't know how it was questioned, but in my head I tried to frame what the answer. Failure of government to act. Yes. And most times you find out that failure of government to act most times has a lot to do with the political will, right? Let's take the 8 years of President Buhari. It was very obvious that even before he won the election, part of his campaign mantra was how he was going to crush Boko Haram. Immediately he took over, we saw the way he treated Boko Haram and the banditry going on in the Northwest with kid glove. But from 2021, while he was in power, we could see that he treated the Southeast, where you had agitation from IPOB, in a different manner. He killed an ant with a sledgehammer in the Southeast, but he couldn't do the same thing in the Northwest. Now, take the 3 years of President Tinubu. It's no hiding the fact that politics played an important role. The day President Tinubu took over, he started thinking about the election in 2027. And he has affected the way he's acting in very way, because as he's acting himself. Will the North vote for me come 2027? So each time you have government in power looking at the way they act, the way they want to please a section of the country politically at the detriment of the entire country, it affects your ability to act. I mean, President Buhari was given a list of financiers from UAE. He never acted on it until date. That has not been made public. Is it that the Nigerian state, with our army of intelligence, do not know who these people are? but we've just kept quiet as if it never happened.
Thank you.
But probably if it was some people from another part of the country, the list would have been on social media. So until this country come out to treat everybody equally, we can start getting results.
Thank you so much. I'm going to go to part 2 now. Very quickly, we only have 20 minutes because we've eaten into the time for part 2. Chitra, I'm going to start with you in regards to part 2. So in your book, The World in Our Hands, I believe that's the title. Some of the stories in there are most harrowing because they are human stories. Not because they're stories, because they're anecdotes. Not because they're anecdotes, because they are experiences, lived experiences. When you heard President Donald Trump's threat to come into Nigeria, guns are blazing, what were your initial thoughts, number one? Number two, the second question is, if I could push it a bit, is what do you think those victims would have felt when they heard that? How would they have responded to that?
Yes, thank you for those questions. I think my initial thought when I read what President Trump had said was frustration that you are having this outside person talking about the situation in Nigeria and Nigerian politics and the Nigerian conflict based on what he had received, which was very one-sided, biased information. Also, anger at how what he said was going to affect relations in Nigeria, so dynamics between different religious groups. We know that actually, and I say this because it's a point not enough stressed, that the vast majority of interactions between Christians and Muslims across the country, including in the north, are positive. So Christians and Muslims are part of the same families, they are part of the same economic networks, they are each other's customers, they go to school together in most places.
If I may interrupt you, many would say that is not true. Are you talking in regards to the 700 victims that you spoke to? I mean, is that what you found?
I'm talking based on my knowledge and experience working across northern Nigeria, including in conflict-affected communities.
Thank you.
And so when I was in the Northeast, for example, I mean, yes, of course, you found, and I think it's important to stress that even though relations are largely peaceful and positive, that does not mean that there are not problems. Of course, there are problems. And you can find ways that Christians very rightly feel discriminated against and targeted, including when it comes for violence. At the same time, as I said before, if you look at the human level, many people talk about how so for example, in southern Borno, they talk about how Muslims would go to celebrate Christmas with their Christian neighbors and friends, and vice versa for Salah, how they played together. And in Nigeria, you have this background and this history of good relations between people of different religions, between people of ethnic groups, which continues despite the conflicts and violence. And I have spoken to many people in Northeast Nigeria who, when they were in danger, it was people of the other group who saved them. So Christians saving Muslims, Muslims saving Christians from harm. And I think that's really important to stress, because often the media narrative and the political narrative is one of all the problems that there are. But we know that that's not always the case. We know, for example, in Kano and places in northwest Nigeria as well, when there were attacks against Christians, it was Muslims who saved them. And we've seen that vice versa in places like Jos, for example. We've also seen Christians saving Muslims. And I think that's really important to stress. At the same time, I would say that this rhetoric from the US and what President Trump said is not helpful. It actually exacerbates the problems that are already there, and it overwrites people's realities. But saying that, as I said, I don't want I think there has been two responses to this Christian genocide framing. The first is saying, yes, it's completely correct and Christians are under threat. And the second one is to say it's completely incorrect and there are no problems. Everyone is facing insecurity. And I would like us to have some nuance in the conversation, although I know that's hard.
But what's that nuance, if you could wrap up? Yeah.
Yeah, in my view, and this is based on years of work across northern Nigeria, as I said, there are broadly good relations. At the same time, there are certain ways that Christians feel, rightly so, discriminated against, targeted. We saw what happened in Sokoto with that young university student who was killed a few years ago. We've seen many cases where Christians have been targeted. We know in the Northeast, for example, Boko Haram has been targeting Christians and Christian communities and churches. At the same time, Muslims are also targeted. We know that there is wide insecurity. And actually in northern Nigeria, because of the demographics of it, and as one of the other panelists mentioned, it's difficult to know. But I would say that as many Muslims or Christians have been harmed by insecurity, if not more Muslims, just because there are more Muslims there. And when we talk about Northeast Nigeria, for example, we know that Boko Haram has not only targeted churches, but it's also targeted mosques and Muslims who they see as being apostate, as being against their own form of Islam.
Thank you so much, Chitra. Dr. Nwokolo, I see your hands up. I see General Ayoola's hand. Dr. Nwokolo, go ahead. You wanted to add to that. I'll give you 2 minutes.
Thank you. I kind of like the position Chitra is bringing, but I want to put some caveats to some of the positions she's taking here. First, at the informal level between community relationship outside the state, there are no issues. When I say outside the state, whenever you remove anything that has to do with government, the people are fine. The relationship are okay. But anytime it's linked with the state, right, there are issues. So let's not take each three of them, and I will try to explain. We have inbuilt structural violence in northern Nigeria, especially against the Christians. And this thing is built in the fabric of the governance. If you go to places like Adamawa, you might be a very bright student. You will pass an JAMB to go to the state university, you will not be taken. You might not be given opportunity to study medicine, law, and all those things. That is even an indigene of Adamawa. We're not talking of in another Nigerian who is born in Adamawa. Once you have a Christian name, you have an issue. I'm not the only one making this statement. It's all over the news and no one is hiding around about it. So most of this structural violence are what are some of these issues fueling this persecution. So the persecution is not only the physical attacks you're seeing, the structural ones are the ones, for me, are the ones we need to deal with. And the issue is that these are mostly at the subnational level, state and local government. So when you go to most of these places like Tafawa Balewa local government in Bauchi, and see that for the fact that you're a Christian, you're already on the negative side. So these are some of the issues. The inability of the Nigerian state to deal with this is the main issue. So yes, I agree with you. The attack is on both sides, and we cannot deny that. But the issue is, who are the perpetrators of this attack? Why is the Nigerian state not coming out to do its own bid? So if I am a Christian and I'm attacked, and the person that has attacked me is coming from the other religion, and the state is not helping me, I am likely to feel this way.
Do you think, if I may interrupt you, sir, do you think, before you wrap up, do you think that's because of the Sharia laws? Do you think certain people, Muslims, are protected by the government or they're favored by the government? Is that what you're saying?
Well, let's be very honest. The state is not protecting anybody.
Okay.
The Nigerian state is not protecting the Christians, is not protecting the Muslims. But the issue remains that the inability to even protect, there's this need for the state to protect you. So if the inability of the Nigerian state to continuously fail to provide those protection can be misinterpreted either way. So for the fact that I'm already a minority, already deprived of a lot of things, in addition to this physical and structural violence,
thank you, sir,
will lead me to interpret it to mean I am not wanted in this place.
Thank you so
much.
And
that could be termed to be genocide.
Thank you so much. General Ayoola, I can see your hand up. I have to be strict now. 2 minutes, I'm putting on my timer. We're running out of time and the lines are going.
Okay, thank you very much. I agree with Chitra that I like the narrative she has put up. It's a narrative I would desire that was the reality on the ground, but that's not the reality. I don't know the people.
We're no longer seeing your face properly anymore, sir. Something's happened.
That's not the reality on ground.
Thank you.
I was commander of Operation Safe Haven on the Plateau, Bauchi, and part of Kaduna. And on the 7th of July, 2012, 12 villages were concurrently attacked by some militias that were imported into the country. Okay? And of course, we know that the area that were attacked, of course, we know that Plateau is about 90% Christians. And those areas were attacked. Of course, at that time, we were able to repel them and all of that. But after I left the command, they came again. That same attack was repeated. Those are not circumstantial things. And I've said that again and again, that the issue with Nigeria's problem is not circumstantial, it's not accidental, it's not incidental. It's a deliberately well-structured, well-planned, agenda and end state that is designed. Because how do you explain you attack a place, then you drive the indigenous people away, and you come and occupy the place? How could that be a mistake? Could that be a mistake? Could that be an accident?
And change the name of the place.
And change the name. If I know some of the villages physically, because I was commander on ground, I was always in the bush there. I know those things. So for anybody to come and tell us, some circumstantial narrative, excuse me, let's put that aside. If we are ever going to solve this problem, we must come to the point where we must be ready to tell ourselves the plain truth. And those who are behind this agenda will change their minds. And the only way they will change their mind is when the rest of us rise up and say, cut it out.
Okay,
this
sir.
joke is enough. This deception is enough. Let's put an end to this nonsense.
Okay,
Until we get to that point, we will continue with these stories.
A direct question to you then, given what you've just said, it's really, I've got to be a yes or no. Are you saying there is Christian genocide in Nigeria or Christian persecution?
See,
you said we've got to tell the truth. What's the truth?
I've been asked this question severally in the last 1 week, and my answer has always been the same, that I'm not going to descend to that arena of talking about either it's Christian or Muslim. The truth is that I think we have spent too much time talking about who and who was killed.
No, sir,
what are the people that are doing the killing?
Yeah,
why are we leaving them?
That's free? The next part.
We are concentrating on the people being killed.
That's the next part. I'm only asking this question because you said we have to be able to tell the truth. And unless we can tell the truth.
Because for me, all lives matter. Either they are Christians or Muslims.
Okay.
All lives matter. That's my position.
Okay, thank you so much. Right. Did somebody have their hand up? Oh, Chitra, you have your hand up. 1 minute, very quickly. And then I'm coming to your calls, people. I haven't forgotten you. Go ahead, Chitra, very quickly. 1 minute.
I wanted to underline what Dr. Nwokolo said. I've been in Christian and Muslim communities across the north central of Nigeria. And both Christian communities and Muslim communities told me that when they had warnings of impending attacks, they called the security forces and the security forces did nothing and they were attacked. So I think this really buttresses your point about the inability or maybe the unwillingness of the Nigerian state to deal with insecurity being the main issue. I also want to go to what the general said, to say that actually, unfortunately, in lots of places in north central Nigeria, you've seen a change in the way that people live. So for example, in Jos, where you used to have mixed neighborhoods of Christians and Muslims living alongside each other, Unfortunately, because of years of insecurity, this is no longer the case. So you have Christian neighborhoods, you have Muslim neighborhoods, Christian schools, Muslim schools, and so you don't have the mixing that there used to be anymore. And a few years ago, I did research in Plateau, Kaduna, Benue, Nasarawa, and Taraba states, where I went into rural communities and spoke to them. And many of them had been affected by conflict and violence. And as a result, the Fulani people had been forced to leave. And people told me in each one of these states, in each one of these communities, people talked to me about how they missed their Fulani neighbors, that they were still in contact with them over phone. And actually, they did not blame them for what had happened, for the violence that had happened. And they knew that it was other people who were the ones who were disturbing them. And they actually wanted their neighbors, the ones that they had known, the ones that they had relationships with, to come back and live amongst them once more. So I completely agree that there are issues between Christians and Muslims, but I still insist on my point that there are so many examples and cases of good, positive relations between the different religious communities as well.
Thank you. Ambassador Keshi, before I go to the calls, do you have anything to add to anything you've heard? If you could do it in a minute.
No, just to correct the impression, the last thing she said, there are no issues between Christians and Muslims, but there are issues between those who imported or those who are responsible for the crisis that has now affected both Muslims and Christians. There are no issues. I mean, everything you are saying indicates that there are no fundamental issues between Christians and Muslims. But when you have people sponsoring some Islamic fundamentalists, encouraging them to kill Christians, encouraging them to kill Muslims, I think we should make a clear dichotomy between the two, so that we understand what we are saying here. And to your question, about whether there is genocide or not and things like that, depend on how you define genocide and how far you want to take it. There is no doubt about that in some of these places that we are talking about, there has been genocide against Christians, pure and simple. And I think everybody recognizes that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Right, I'm coming to your calls now. Make it short, sharp, and succinct. Very, very short. Hello. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. What's your name? What's your question, please? Oh, your line cut off. Hello.
Yeah, so I greet you.
Yes, good afternoon.
Yeah, I greet you, our guests.
Yes.
The general and others.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'm worried. Honestly, I can't understand. You see, we are battling with this insurgency, this terrorism.
Rapper Chico, unfortunately, I don't have time for comments. Do you have a question, please? I'm sorry.
Okay, my question is this: why Nigerian government still delaying for U.S. military to intervene and fight this insecurity?
Why does Nigerian government not want the military?
Okay. Why are they still delaying? Inviting this U.S. military from intervening? Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
They're supposed to allow them to come intervene and fight this insecurity.
Thank you very much. Hello.
Yeah,
hello. Yes, good evening.
The question I asked earlier was not answered. I said, if the Nigerian government is not taking on the sponsor of this insecurity we have in Nigeria, the sponsors of terrorism, are we heading anywhere? Thank you.
Okay. If the Nigerian government is not taking or handling the sponsors of terrorism, as in facing them head on, where are we heading? Let me take another question, please. Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, I think if we want to deal with this, I have a question which should talk about the nitty-gritty of this issue. Is there really an Islamic teaching that encourage Muslims to kill, strike non-Muslims?
Okay, thank you. Right, I have, and that one, I'm trying to write all the questions down so we don't miss any. So excuse me. The last one is, and I don't know who wants to take that, perhaps you, Chitra, given that you've worked across both religions, is there an Islamic teaching that teaches Muslims to kill other Muslims. Hold on to that. I have a question from, I think, Emmanuel. If the Nigerian government is not dealing with the sponsors of this terrorist, are they really ready to do anything at all? And the other question I have, which I will put to you, Dr. Nwokolo, is why is Nigerian government delaying the U.S. intervention? Right. Who's going first? 1 minute each. The lines are going, and we still have more. Do you want to go? Since I've got Ambassador Keshi in front of me, perhaps you may go first, sir.
I think the main question, really, and which has been strange, is the fact that this is probably one crisis anywhere in the world where you cannot explain, or you cannot find the sponsors, or you cannot even find those, leading the quote and unquote, leading the struggle. But I want to believe that the government has an idea of who the sponsors are, but for political reasons, they are not ready to deal with them. Because a crisis like we have experienced in the last 15 years should not have lasted 15 years if there are no sponsors, if there are no backers. And I refuse to believe that government, remember during Jonathan's time, he said that there are Boko Haram elements in his cabinet. So that gives an example of the fact that, they know the sponsors, but for their own selfish political interests, they rather not deal with them, but try to manage it, pretending that they are going to get the military, poor military, to fight these people. This is why sometimes you see me giggling. It's because of the questions some people are posing to my friend, the general. It's very difficult for him to give you all the answers you want anyway. But for sure, there are sponsors of this, and until the government can bring the sponsors and deal with them, we are getting nowhere, to be candid. We are getting nowhere.
Okay, thank you so much. But since I can't see Dr. Nwokolo, I'm also going to ask you then, Ambassador, why is Nigeria delaying the U.S. intervention? That was a call, one of the questions from my callers. I think they're trying to get Dr.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that...
is it about sovereignty?
I'm not sure. Yes, no. I'm not sure that the Nigerian government is delaying. The U.S. did not say it wants to invade Nigeria to start with. I think we get mention of this thing. All it says that it's going to come and help. And I think it's beholden on the Nigerian government to accept that help or not to accept that help. But what Nigerians need to understand is that the man who tried or who made that statement has its own fundamental problem of short span, So he has made that statement. He has moved on to other issues that are of interest to him, except somebody like Ted Cruz, who is threatening to name or to provide some names to the president for sanctions, except they keep putting pressure on the president. For me, I think the U.S. president has moved on to other issues that are of importance to him.
Thank you. Right, Chitra, I'm coming to you.
Permit me to say a word on that.
Okay, go ahead, General.
Yes,
1 minute. 1 minute, sir.
I think I spoke on this recently. I think we need to get this designation.
We can't see you properly anymore again, sir. We can't see you properly.
This is not the first time that President Trump was going to designate Nigeria as a CPC. He did that in 2020. And many people didn't even get to know about it. Because there is a scale of presidential actions when the nation is designated CPC. And of course, attacking the nation is not one of those options. Okay, so it's not about attack; it's about what assistance they can give Nigeria to help end insurgency, terrorism, and banditry. And I think the government will not say they don't want such an assistance, but it's not something that will happen in a jiffy, because that will take some time for the two countries to sit together and look at which area of assistance the Nigerian forces will need to help get the work done. Just like what Europe said to America during the Second World War. Give us the materials and we will finish the job. That kind of thing.
Thank you very much.
I think we can do that again.
Okay, thank you. Chitra, I'm coming to you with that question, which I think is an important question about Islamic teaching. Is there anything in Islam that teaches other that teaches Muslims to kill other Muslims. But what I would like to add to that, or at least bring it as under the umbrella of the blasphemy laws. General Ayoola talked about the first time Nigeria was designated a CPC. One of the things that was demanded back then was about our blasphemy laws, was for Nigeria to remove the blasphemy laws. And those blasphemy laws still exist. Why do we have them when we're supposed to be a secular country?
Thank you. So I'm not an Islamic scholar, so it's difficult for me to answer that question completely. Let me start by saying that, of course, all statements in religious texts can be twisted with interpretations that suit the position of the person saying that, and that is as true of the Bible as it is of the Quran. Saying that, though, I know that there are many teachings within Islam about how to treat non-Muslims. One of the big pillars of the faith is that there is no compulsion in Islam, that faith is a choice. The Prophet Muhammad himself dealt with non-Muslims with respect, making treaties that protected their rights and the rights of everyone. And we also know that there are many cases today and across history of Muslims, Christians, and people of all other religions living together in peace. So yeah, let me leave that there. In terms of blasphemy laws, I think that's a really good point to make. You say that Nigeria is supposed to be a secular country, but given the role of religion in the country and in politics, is Nigeria really a secular country? Look at the influence that religious leaders, whether it's the Christian Association of Nigeria or anybody else, has in politics, the way that they have become involved in election campaigns, and you really question the extent to which Nigeria is a secular nation. About the blasphemy laws, the blasphemy laws, of course, affect everybody who lives in the places that they apply, and that includes Muslims as well as Christians. Of course, when you look at the recent cases in Kano that have happened since 2020, it were Muslims who belonged to sects that were seen as straying from the path. There was this one young praise singer who was sentenced by the Sharia court in Kano because he was seen to imply in his singing that there was another prophet who was greater than the Prophet Muhammad. You have the case of Mubarak Bala, who is an atheist but comes from a Muslim background and was therefore treated as a Muslim when he was sentenced to 24 years in prison for blasphemy, for apostasy. And you have many other cases. The case of the young man who I think a 15-year-old child who in an argument with his friend was alleged to have indicated that God did not exist or something against God, and therefore was sentenced by the Sharia court. So yes, in my view, the blasphemy laws are a problem, but they're a problem that affect everyone, regardless of religion.
Indeed.
And if I may, I just want to talk about US intervention. And I would like to urge the caller to look at the places where the US has intervened in terms of militarily. You can go back in history to Korea and Vietnam, but also more recently to Iraq and Afghanistan. And where has it actually gone well? And I think also there has been a tendency for people to emphasize the need for kinetic responses. And this is where the conversation around equipment or lack of equipment bears in. But actually in an internal war, which is what we're experiencing in Nigeria, the issue is often not kinetic responses, and often those heavy-handed responses actually make things worse. Rather, the military and the government as a whole need to focus more on hearts and minds and dealing with the root causes of violence. And I'll give an example here.
Very quickly.
About kidnapping.
Kidnapping
and how it has spread. If you look at kidnapping and if you look at the economic situation of Nigeria, you will see that there is a connection. And unfortunately, kidnapping at the moment is one of the most or only livelihood, if we can call it that actually is sustainable and that gets results in this country. And I've spoken to people who have engaged in kidnapping, and they have talked to me about the economic reasons for them doing so. Of course, those are not the only reasons. But I want to really ask you, like, if the economic situation of the country was better, would people resort to kidnapping? And I came across cases in Adamawa where people were kidnapped, and do you know how much their ransom was? 2,000 naira. Imagine kidnapping someone and asking for 2,000 naira for their ransom. I think that shows kind of the level of poverty in which some, maybe not all, but some kidnappers are in. And those are the things that the government needs to deal with. And that is very different from the US military coming in to support the Nigerian military in its response.
Thank you so much. Dr. Nwokolo, I'm going to come to you. I'm going to come to you and I'm going to read out some of the recommendations that Nextier made to reversing Nigeria's designation as a CPC. There are 5. I'm not going to read it, or just going to read the headlines, and I'd like you to pick one and tell us why or which is most important. Recommendation 1. Nigeria and the US must urgently explore diplomatic options to deal with the current situation. Number 2, the Nigerian government should go beyond deployment of security to troubled sports. Number 3, Nigeria and the US should collaborate to tackle the roots of violence in Nigeria. Number 4, the Nigerian government should strengthen early warning and early response mechanisms. And number 5, the Nigerian government should collaborate with civil society and think tanks in data mining. I'd like you, Dr. Nwokolo, I hope your line is good. I would like you to talk to us, pick one, or if you want to wrap all of them together in 2 minutes, please. And I've got to be strict. I know I keep saying that, and I don't think I've been strict, but I have to be. Dr. Nwokolo, I'm not going to tolerate your network not working right now. This is not good. We need you. The lines are going. Are you able to talk? No.
Hello?
Yes, there you are. There you are. Technology. We can hear you. Or we could hear you. Are you there? Can you hear me? Oh, wow. Your network has gone again. Okay. Whilst they're fixing that, let me try and sneak in one call whilst our tech people are trying to sort out Dr. Nwokolo's network. Hello. Hello. Yes. Good afternoon.
Yeah. Good afternoon. My name is Paul. Yeah, I have a specific question from the lady over there.
For Chitra. Yes. Go ahead. Very quickly.
Yeah, quick one. So, if there is a reason to, give an excuse towards, because she says something about kidnapping, now about the economy. So, if there is a reason to justify kidnapping because of the country's economy, let's say the country.
Hold on. Sorry, are you saying is there a reason to justify kidnapping because of? She didn't. Actually, I have to respond. If that is the basis of your question, she did not. She did not. She just gave it as an example. She did not justify kidnapping because of the economy.
Let me ask a question towards the general over there.
Okay.
So now, could the Nigerian government be trusted by the U.S. military based on the fact that they have not been able to release terrorist founders? So can the U.S. government trust such a government that can't even expose the sponsors of terrorism?
Okay, thank you very much. Right. I can only see we seem to be having lots of network issues. At least I can see Ambassador Keshi. I can see Chitra. Oh, it would appear, Dr. Nwokolo, can you hear us now? Talk to me if I can hear you. That would be great. No, we can't hear you. We can't hear you. I know I can see somebody trying to. Yes.
Fantastic. So back to. Couple of things. One, apart from what we've listed, this country needs to deepen peace building across community.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is very important. And like I keep telling people, every peace building is a state building, but not every state building is a peace building.
Mm.
So we live in a country where we are talking about infrastructure if we're able to provide it. But the most important thing is to create peaceful environment in this nation. Again, we have an elite, a political elite, both traditional elite, that has refused to gamble on peace. There's a book I read, which is to gamble on development. We need to gamble on peace in this country. This is a country where we've deployed military in 34 out of our 36 states. In most of the places where they are not required. 3 weeks ago, I went to Aba from Owerri. From Owerri Airport to Aba, I counted over 25 checkpoints. Each of them were a mile after each other. As someone from the Southeast, I felt very bad. As educated as I am, as someone who has a PhD in peace building, there was this anger in me, talk less of people who do not understand. We need to work on our peace building as a people. And this can be linked to everything happening in this country. Issues of inclusion, issues of marginalization. If we are to work, there are a lot of underserved communities in this country. And most of these people are now becoming easy recruits into most of this violence that we're experiencing.
Thank you.
So like what Major Ayoola said, and we've been saying here, we need to come as a people. Our leadership needs to start working. We need to start thinking as a people how to start working on all this. America cannot solve this problem. This problem is for us to solve. If America comes in here, well, I even tell people Nigeria is of no, I don't want to say of no interest, but I don't see Trump coming in here.
Thank you.
Our rare earth mineral that we have, a lot of us do not even want the country to start benefiting from it. So we're underplaying that we have the mineral so that we continue to do illegal mining in this country. There are a lot of things to be spoken about. I have said that we have refused to develop our mining industry because some people might be asking why you're paying 13% to them. So immediately we start developing the mining industry in a way that it matches the oil in the Niger Delta. Some people are going to say, okay, in that case, raise it up to the manner that the state will control it and pay the tax to the central. Then the Niger Delta will ask you, since 1958, why have you not done the same thing?
Thank you so much, sir.
We need to tell ourselves the truth.
Thank you. Ambassador Keshi, I can see your hands are up. You have 2 minutes, sir. We're coming close to the end fast.
You know, I just want to follow up to what Dr. Nwokolo has just said. And this is why, on a personal level, I feel very disappointed that as of today that we are having this conference, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria has not thought it necessary to speak to the people of Nigeria. His powers and the sovereignty does not belong to the leadership of this country, but according to the Constitution, it belongs to the people of this country. When you have a crisis like this, the first responsibility of the government is to rally around the troops, bring the people together, talk to them about the crisis and what the nation is going to do. The whole effort is to gather, bring the people together. But where that is not being done, you continue to encourage this kind of situation, this division that we have in Nigeria. And this is why you're having this whole argument, which for me, and I disagree with those who started by saying, oh yeah, Christians are being killed, but Muslims are being killed. For me, it's the most idiotic argument to make because Muslims are also human beings. They were killed because the government failed to protect them in the first instance. But the truth of the matter is that Nigeria will never change until there's a change in the mindset of the leaders of this country. And this is at all levels, whether the local government, which by the way doesn't even exist. And you know that part of the problem is that in some states of this country, the local governments do not function at all. There are no local government, no government in those places. And so until we wake up to the reality of some of the things I call the internal contradictions of this country and begin to do certain things, to move this country forward. Look, we are just going to go from one crisis to the other, irrespective of whether the economy is getting stronger or not.
Thank you so much. Chitra, any word from you before I move on? I think we've lost the general. Can you hear me, Chitra? Any word from you? Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I completely agree with what the ambassador and the doctor just said. And I really want to stress the importance of peace building across the nation, within communities, between communities. You know, I don't know the East very well. I have never worked there. I just go there for weddings and for naming ceremonies. And I remember in 2015, between the federal and the state election.
When you go next for a wedding, next time you go for wedding, stay longer, please.
Yes, please. I would love to. And I remember in 2015, I went there between the federal and the state elections. And the way that people were talking, because it was Buhari who had been elected and because of his history in the region, I knew, like, it was very clear that there were lots of worries, unhappiness around that. And I'm very sorry to say it, but I really think the Buhari administration, if I had sat down with my peace building colleagues and we had mapped out what the administration could do to make the matters in the East worse, vis-a-vis the East and the center, and create problems where previously, I mean, I remember the East was a time where it was very peaceful, there weren't any security issues, and it was just a wonderful place to go to. And now you have a situation where even people who are from there are worried about going to their villages for Christmas or any other time. And really, like, if you had sat down and mapped out what could be done to completely destabilize the East, that's what the government did. And I'm very sorry to say it, but I think you saw a complete lack of understanding for how people were feeling. Really, what Buhari should have done at that time was just go to the East, talk to them and say, look, I know that there's a past between us, but I have been elected as the president of the entire country, and I will govern to the benefit of the entire country. And so you see there the way that politicians have actively created problems, not to mention kind of the heavy-handed security responses that took place to the protests that were there. And so you have a situation now where I would say almost every single part of Nigeria is facing some kind of security problem, and almost every part of Nigeria feels that it's disenfranchised. And how is that possible for an entire nation? Normally, when you have people feeling like the minority, you have other people feeling like the majority. But who in Nigeria feels well served by the government these days?
Thank you. Excellent question. General Ayoola, you're back. Thank you for joining back. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. We literally have about 8 minutes or so to go to the end of the show. I know 2 hours goes fast. General, you have your hand up. Are you able to make it very quick? Yes, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think my final words
again,
would be
you need to
plea.
sit properly. Yes. Right. Yes,
okay.
Thank you.
My final word would be a plea to those who are behind this calamity that Nigeria has been subjected to in the last many, many years, to just take a look at the world around us and look at the countries and the leaders who have gone this route and see where are those leaders now and what is the state of those nations now. That will be enough for them to know that this is an exercise in futility. It's a situation where both the villain and the victims are all going to be losers. And at the end of the day, destruction is the only sure end. I think it's a good time to cut out this whole agenda and let Nigeria be at peace. That's my plea. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Dr. Nwokolo, do you have anything to add there before I ask you all to give me your last words? Do you have anything at all to add?
So, I mean, just like we've all said, the government can do a lot, especially with this strategic communication. I mean, the government need to come out and take responsibility where it should, apologize where it should, and assure Nigerians that we can do more. And more importantly, and like I tell people, government is just a big brother of other institutions in the state. So the other institutions of the state should rise up and start doing their work.
Thank you very much.
From the security institution to the civil service.
Okay.
All should rise up. So it's not only left, the governance of the state should not be left in the hands of just the government, but other institutions of the state. Some of them are even independent of the government, as in our constitution. But most times they are wrapped by the government that they do nothing.
Okay.
Like our judiciary. Can our judiciary start acting? Can our judiciary? I mean, if you walk out of the street and do a survey where the judiciary is now, the police is even above them.
Right. Let me interrupt you because this is the last question to everybody, and I'm going to need you to answer it literally in 30 seconds, maximum 1 minute each. Your message, 1, to President Donald Trump. 2, your message to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Since I've got you here, Dr. Nwokolo, your message. What is your message to President Donald Trump? Short, please.
My message to President Trump is that we do not have any deals that we can make with him. If they want to support Nigeria, they should support Nigerian military to deal with the issue. Secondly, with President Tinubu, is that he should start building bridges, peace building, right? There are so many low-hanging fruits that he can deal with, so that those that are ideological wars, he can use the military. But those that are just mediation, shaking hands, exactly what President Yar'Adua did in 2007 with the Niger Delta militants. He should do that with those whose issues are just that you've neglected us, put us back in the scheme of things.
Thank you.
That's all.
Thank you so much. Chitra, if you had to give, what's your message to President Donald Trump, number 1, and then President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, starting with their name, please, because we're hoping they will see this.
So, President Trump, thank you very much for your concern. I'm happy that you care about Nigeria. However, the decisions that you've made recently, for example, the cuts to USAID and other US assistance, has had real detrimental impacts on healthcare and other very needed services in Nigeria.
Very quickly.
If you really cared about Nigeria, perhaps you can think about reversing them rather than sending in military assistance. To President Tinubu, I understand that you have a difficult task. However, I think you really need to look at how to pull this country together and how to bring about social cohesion within communities, between communities, and across the nation.
Thank you very much. Ambassador Keshi, the same to you. I have 2 minutes, so I'm going to give you one of those. Your message to President Donald Trump and your message to President Tinubu, starting with their name, sir, please, because I think they will listen to you.
Yeah, no, I think that, look, I have no business with Donald Trump for now, but let me just say with our president, as imperfect as our constitution may be, or we think it is, the constitution lays out very clearly on what is expected of the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And what are these? Justice for the people, fairness to all the people, equity, given the fact that this is a country, with diverse population and people, accountability and good governance. If the leaders of this country across all levels can just be fair, just, equitable, accountable, and operate good governance, this will forever be a very good country. And the failure of them not doing this all these years has brought us to where we are today. And as I said much earlier, Donald Trump has moved on, except somebody again goes back to him and say, no, we have not resolved this issue. But for now, he has his own problems to deal with.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
General Ayoola, very quickly, they're trying to throw me off. I have 1 minute to give you. Your message to President Trump and your message to President Tinubu.
Yeah, thank you very much. President Trump, my plea to you is look at how you can give us the necessary military assistance in terms of logistics, armament platforms that will help our armed forces to deal with insurgency, terrorism, and banditry. And to President Tinubu, our dear president, I know your efforts are sincere and honest, So please find it in a way to collaborate and cooperate with whatever military assistance we can get from US to put an end to this era as a nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We are at the end of, I did tell you it was going to be uncompromising. A big thank you to all my guests, Ambassador Keshi, Dr. Nwokolo, Chitra, Nigerian. You can go and buy her book, The World in Our Hands. It's available at Roving Heights. And Major General Ayoola. My message to all of us is, if there's one thing you've heard from my panelists, is that we all need to come together with one collective voice and demand better from our government. That's it. Nothing more than that. Thank you, gentlemen and lady. Thank you so much for being on Borderlines.
Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
More conversation, more talk, more right after this.
Help build strong.
99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.